The frost clung to the brittle grass like silver needles, glinting in the pale hush before dawn. The prairie lay silent but for the distant howl of a lone coyote, echoing over the flat, wind-burnt land. Just beyond the fence line of a half-forgotten farm, beside a wooden trough warped by years of sun and storms, a woman curled into herself, one arm wrapped around the fragile bundle of a baby pressed tight to her chest. Her shawl was thin, torn at the hem, and stiff with dirt. She hadn't slept, not really. Every creak in the wood, every shifting gust across the barn wall pulled her eyes open in fear. The child stirred. A faint whimper rose, muffled against the woman's shoulder. She hushed him with a whisper, so low it could have passed for wind. Her lips were cracked. Her hands shook, not from the cold alone. There were boot tracks behind her, still visible in the hardened mud, where she'd stumbled from the road under cover of darkness. She hadn't expected to make it as far as she had. The baby's fever came fast, and her body moved now on something beyond will. Each step had been like carrying both of them through water. But she'd seen the light from the house, a faint orange glow that flickered once, then went out. She didn't plan to knock. She only meant to rest for a moment, just until daylight. A shadow shifted on the porch. She didn't see him at first, the way he moved quietly, blending with the stillness. He stepped down onto the frozen earth, the boards creaking gently beneath his weight. A wide brim had covered most of his face, but the lines of age were there in the way he walked, careful, with the caution of a man who once rode hard and no longer needed to prove it. The woman stiffened, her legs coiled, ready to run if she had to, though she knew she couldn't get far. He stopped a few feet from her, far enough not to scare her more than she already was. His voice, when it came, was soft, like someone trying not to wake a sleeping child. "You don't belong out here, miss." She blinked at him, too numb to answer. He nodded toward the bundle in her arms. "The baby's warm?" Her chin dropped. "Fever. Came on last night." "You been walking?" She didn't speak. He looked at her for a long time, then said, "Fire's still warm inside. There's bread, too. It ain't much, but it'll hold you." Her eyes welled. She bit down hard on her lip, and the taste of iron filled her mouth. "I don't got money," she whispered. "I didn't ask for any. I don't got a name I can give you, neither. Not one you'd want." The man tilted his head, and for the first time she saw his eyes. Clear, gray as winter skies. Not curious, not judgmental, just steady. "Then don't give it," he said. "Ain't none of my business who you were, just who you are now." She stared at him, her throat thick with disbelief. "You don't know what I've done." "No," he said, "and I don't need to. But the child didn't do anything, and it's cold enough to kill a full-grown man out here." A long silence passed. Then slowly she rose. Her knees buckled. He reached a hand toward her, not touching, just offering. She ignored it, hoisted herself up, and followed as he turned. The farmhouse was plain. Weathered planks, a tired roof, smoke barely curling from the chimney. Inside, it smelled of ash and something sweet. Porridge, maybe. A fire still smoldered in the hearth, enough heat to sting her cheeks as she stepped through the door. She lowered herself beside it, clutching her child close, while the man pulled a thick quilt from the rocker and draped it around her shoulders. He didn't ask questions, just filled a mug with warm water, handed it to her, then ladled some porridge into a chipped bowl. "I'm Elias," he said, sitting on a stool across the room. She hesitated. "I never meant to come here. I was just looking for a place to stop." "Then stop a while. This land's quiet." The baby whimpered again. She loosened the shawl, touched his damp brow. The fever hadn't broken, but he slept deeper now, the kind of sleep that scared her. "Is it just you here?" she asked. Elias nodded. "Has been for a long time." "Why?" The question slipped out before she could hold it back. "Too many folks ask questions that don't matter. I stopped giving answers." She studied him, the lined face, the faded shirt stitched at the collar, the boots worn thin, but cared for. There was no softness in him, but no harshness either. He didn't look away when she did. He wasn't afraid of silence. "I'll only stay a day," she said. "Just long enough for the fever to pass." "That's up to you." She wrapped the blanket tighter, eyes flickering to the fire. For the first time in days, her fingers stopped trembling. In the stillness, Elias rose, walked to a cabinet, and placed a loaf of bread on the table. He sliced a piece without saying a word, wrapped it in cloth, and set it beside her. I got spare wood stacked outside. You're welcome to stay by the hearth long as you need. But if trouble's following you, you best let me know before it knocks. She didn't answer, but her jaw clenched. He didn't push. Outside, the wind picked up, rustling the dead branches of a nearby cottonwood. She whispered, more to the flames than to him, "If they come, they won't knock." Elias paused, then gave a single nod. "Then I'll be ready." She didn't sleep the next night, not really. Not even with the fire crackling low and Elias's quiet presence moving about the house like a shadow, silent, measured, without intrusion. The baby's fever held, but it hadn't worsened. He breathed shallow, but steady. Cheek nestled into the crook of her arm. Still, her eyes stayed open in the dark. Her ears strained for horses. She'd heard them before. 3 of them. Big, mean bastards with their own rules. The kind of men who didn't need a sheriff because they didn't believe in law, only in what they could take, burn, or break. And she'd broken something. Something of theirs. By morning, her hands were blistered from splitting kindling. Elias hadn't asked her to, but he didn't stop her either. Work, she'd learned, kept the fear down. She stacked the wood, milked the lone cow in the lean-to, boiled water for the baby's cloths. Every hour, she expected the thud of hooves on dry dirt, the cruel laugh of Buck Kenzie echoing from the tree line. Elias watched her, not like a man watches a stranger, but like someone studying the edge of a storm. Quiet, respectful, unafraid. She found herself telling him things, not everything, not the worst of it, but enough. That her name was Clara, that she hadn't meant to shoot the man in the saloon, only scare him, that she'd been on the run for 3 days since. That Buck Kenzie wasn't just angry. He was hunting. Elias listened, arms crossed, leaning against the porch rail. He didn't interrupt. When she finished, he said only, "He the baby's father?" Clara shook her head. "Baby's got no father. Just me." Elias nodded. "Then he's already better off than most." Clara looked at him. "You ever kill a man?" Elias's gaze didn't flinch. "Yes." "For what?" He answered slowly, like the words were heavier than they should be. "To keep someone alive." That night, Elias took to walking the property line after sundown, rifle slung easy over his shoulder, boots crunching across brittle weeds. He didn't act worried, but Clara saw how often he stopped to look past the ridge. In the dim lamplight, Clara sat on the floor, knees pulled to her chest, watching the baby breathe. She thought about how it all came apart. How she'd scrubbed tables in Kenzie's saloon just to feed herself. How Buck's attention turned cruel the moment she started saying no. How the barkeep pretended not to see. How everyone else looked away. Until that night, when Buck cornered her in the cellar and the pistol on the wall finally became more than decoration. She hadn't aimed for his chest, but the bullet went there anyway. She ran, with nothing but a satchel, a blanket, and the baby. She ran through creeks, through mesquite thickets and open plains, and she knew Buck wouldn't let her vanish. Not for pride, not for the scar she left him with. When Elias came back inside, he poured water into a tin cup and sat across from her without a word. They didn't need to talk about what came next. It was already coming. "Why are you helping me?" she asked suddenly. "You don't even know me." Elias looked at her over the rim of his cup. "Don't need to. Seen enough of the world to know when somebody's trying to survive." "You think I'm good?" He considered that a moment. "I think you're tired. And brave. And I think anyone who carries a child across open land in the dead of winter ain't a threat to me." She nodded, lips pressed tight. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep. Outside, wind scraped at the shutters. The fire hissed as a log split in half. "Used to be married once," Elias said quietly. "Long time ago." "What happened?" He glanced at the window. A gang rode through. They took what they wanted. Left nothing standing but this house. Claire stared at the floor. "I'm sorry." "So was I," he said. "But being sorry never fixed a damn thing." Later that night, when she rose to feed the baby and stepped outside to breathe the cold air, she saw it. A small carving in the porch beam, worn down with time but still legible. 2 initials, E+M. She reached out and traced them. The wood was rough beneath her fingertips, the letters shallow but permanent. A branch cracked near the fence line. She froze. Elias stepped out behind her, silent as always. His rifle was already in hand. "What is it?" she whispered. He didn't answer, just stared past the field, toward the shadows near the barn. "Then go inside." "Now." Her heart pounded. "You saw someone." "I saw movement." She backed toward the door, baby tucked tight in her arms. Elias moved forward, down the steps, into the night. She watched from the window as he circled the barn, lantern in one hand, rifle in the other. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. Nothing. He came back inside without a word, but his jaw was tighter. "Might have been a coyote," he said. "Might have," she echoed. But they both knew better. That night, Clara didn't sleep at all. She sat by the fire with the baby in her lap, eyes locked on the door, every creak in the old wood making her chest tighten. The past was writing. It wasn't a matter of if, but when. The sun broke over the horizon, casting a brittle gold across the plains, and with it came a fragile calm, a stillness that felt almost unnatural after nights thick with shadows and waiting. Clara sat by the porch, the baby wrapped snug in a faded blanket, eyes half closed against the dawn chill. Elias moved quietly around the small house, tending the fire and gathering what little supplies they had left. Neither spoke much, their silence heavy but unstrained, as if both understood the weight hanging in the cold morning air. The land stretched endless beyond the fence, a patchwork of cracked earth, dry sagebrush, and scattered wildflowers pushing through the dust. It was beautiful and merciless all at once, a reminder that survival here was a test without mercy or pause. Clara's gaze drifted to the distant canyons, where the sky met the earth, imagining the outlaws moving under the rising light, closing in like a dark tide. Elias broke the quiet with a low grunt, stacking firewood near the door. "We got a few hours till the sun's high," he said. "Best time to get what we need from the barn." Clara looked up, her fingers tightening around the blanket. "You think they'll come today?" He didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was steady but cold. "They're close. Closer than they've been. Reckon it's only a matter of time before they want to finish what they started." She swallowed hard, the taste of fear bitter on her tongue. "I'm not ready to run anymore." Elias paused, meeting her eyes with something like respect. "Maybe it's time you don't have to." The barn door creaked as Elias pulled it open, revealing worn saddles, a few barrels of feed, and old tools hanging from rusty nails. He moved with practiced ease, grabbing a coil of rope and a weathered rifle that looked almost as old as the house. Clara followed, heart pounding. "I don't know how to fight." "Fighting ain't always about gunfire," Elias said, slinging the rifle over his shoulder. "Sometimes it's about knowing the land, knowing your enemy, and holding steady when the world tries to shake you." She nodded, though the doubt lingered. She had no choice but to trust the man who had saved her, who'd offered shelter without a second thought. Outside, the wind stirred again, whispering secrets through the grass. The baby stirred, and Clara leaned over to hush him, feeling the small life against her like a promise. "Listen," Elias said, lifting a finger to his lips. From the ridge came a faint rumble, the slow, deliberate beat of hooves. Her breath caught. Elias's eyes sharpened, scanning the horizon. "They're here." The moment stretched thin, a fragile thread pulled taut between heartbeats. Clara felt the weight of the rifle in Elias's hand, the steady pulse of determination in his stance. "They won't find us easy," Elias said quietly, "but you gotta be ready." She looked at him, the man who had given her a chance when the world turned its back. "I am." The horses grew louder, shadows rising over the hill like ghosts of a storm. And as the first rider crested the ridge, Clara felt something shift inside her, the raw edge of fear cutting into resolve. The fight was coming, but so was the reckoning. Dust rose first, a slow, swirling wake of pale red kicked up by hooves pressing down hard on dry earth. Then came the men, 3 shapes atop dark horses, silhouettes carved in firelight and grit. Buck Kenzie rode in front, shoulders squared, rifle across his lap, like a crown of menace. His eyes scanned the ranch with cold purpose, like a wolf sniffing out a rabbit hole. Elias stood on the porch, rifle slung easy in his hand, posture loose, but anchored like an oak refusing to bow. He didn't raise his voice or call out a warning. He simply watched, unreadable as the land behind him. Clara stood just inside the doorway, her breath caught between instinct and fury, the baby quiet in her arms. The men reined up 10 paces from the gate. Buck spat into the dirt, sneering toward the house. "You got something that belongs to me, old man." Elias's voice came low but clear. "Nothing here belongs to you." Buck chuckled, glancing at his companions. "She killed one of mine. Stole from my camp. That makes her property. I came to collect." Clara stepped out onto the porch beside Elias. She wasn't holding a weapon, just the baby, wrapped in blankets. Her face was drawn but steady, her voice sharp as broken glass. "He grabbed my son in his sleep. Called it payment. I put him down like a rabid dog." Buck's grin vanished. "You think that makes you righteous. I think it makes me a mother." The air cracked, tight and tense. One of the riders shifted in his saddle, hand drifting too close to his holster. Elias clocked it in half a blink. "Tell your men to keep their hands in the wind," he said, raising the rifle slightly. "This ain't your town, and you're out of reach of your law." Buck's eyes narrowed. "You aiming to die for her?" "I've died once already," Elias replied. "Didn't take." Without warning, the rider on the left twitched, too fast, too eager. Elias moved faster. A thunderclap of gunfire tore the morning apart. The rider pitched backward off his horse, rifle tumbling in the dirt. Then it was chaos. Buck swung his rifle up, firing wild toward the porch. Wood splintered inches from Clara's shoulder. She ducked inside, shielding the baby, heart hammering in her chest. Elias dropped to one knee, chambered another round, and fired again, this time striking the second man clean in the chest. Only Buck remained. He wheeled his horse hard, trying to get behind cover, but Elias moved like wind through dry grass, already closing the distance. Buck fired again, too late. Elias dropped his rifle and lunged, dragging him off the saddle in a tangle of limbs and fury. They hit the ground hard, fists flying. Clara rushed outside, baby pressed to her chest, eyes wide with panic. The 2 men grappled in the dust, neither speaking. Buck was younger, faster, but Elias was something else, cold and relentless, like a man with nothing left to lose. Buck reached for his pistol. Elias knocked it away. A sharp punch cracked across Elias's jaw, splitting his lip. He grunted, blood in his teeth, and drove a knee into Buck's ribs. "You think you're justice?" Buck snarled. "You're nothing. You're broken." Elias's eyes burned. "Then I'm what breaks you." The final blow was brutal, a rock-fisted uppercut that dropped Buck like a sack of wet feed. He didn't get back up. Elias staggered to his feet, breathing ragged, hands trembling from adrenaline and blood loss. Clara was beside him in an instant, eyes locked on his. "You all right?" He nodded once, then looked down at Buck's body, unmoving in the dirt. "You could have killed him," she said. "I still might," Elias replied. Then, after a moment, "But maybe letting him live with this is worse." The wind picked up, brushing past them like the world exhaling. Clara sat beside Elias as he cleaned his wounds with shaking hands. The baby slept between them, peaceful and unaware. The sun was high now, the land quiet again, but something had changed. She looked at the man beside her, scarred, steady, strange in a way only the truly wounded are, and saw not just a protector, but a partner. Elias glanced at her, eyes soft despite the bruises. "You still planning on leaving?" Clara hesitated, looked out at the land, the house, the stretch of sky with no end in sight. "No," she said quietly. "Not if you'll have us." He didn't smile, not quite, but something in his shoulders eased, and the wind carried on across the plains as the last storm scattered and broke.